It was self-funded, the company, for about a year. So we basically went all in. It wasn't. It was a big risk, but we believed that hypothesis had legs, and we started to give the product out to a ton of people, including doctors, stylists at the time as well, and a lot of consumers, including family members. And the results were just absolutely mind-blowing. What was super interesting is that because the product was originally designed for men, there was such an amazing appetite and desire for women to take the product as well, which opened up a whole new conversation for us. And to date, actually, the business is 80% women.
Today we have the founder, co-founder, and CEO of Nutrafol, Giorgos Tsetis. Tsetis. I was close.
Very, very much.
Yeah.
Practiced a little bit last night.
I did after I spoke with you. So thank you very much for sharing the time with us. So where were you born?
I'm born in Greece and brought up in Holland.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And did you study in Holland?
Studied in Holland engineering. And then I came to the States in 2009 to pursue the American dream.
Which was?
Helping the world become a better place.
And were you functioning as an engineer, or were you doing your modeling?
I wish you didn't bring that one up. But
I had to.
So I actually came to New York with a special visa, which was through the modeling. I had an engineering career, but this is in 2009 when pretty much everything crashed. So it was a big deal for me to find an engineering job. I used to send a lot of resumes out, but I didn't even get rejections. I just got no answers, right? So, but luckily enough, I started my engineering company myself in New York City in 2012, which was a great way to help.
And what were you primarily focusing on at that time?
I was mostly focusing on structural engineering that was related to building inspections. I don't know if you guys know, but in New York, every building above 5 stories has to be inspected every 5 years. That's why you see scaffolding pretty much all around.
Uh-huh.
And as an engineer, you have to basically define whether it's safe or safe with maintenance, etc. So I saw that gap because obviously there's a lot of buildings and these inspections have to happen on a recurring basis, and nobody was doing that work. So I went back to school in New York to get some of these licenses in order to do that work, which was super fun and very cool.
And was it during that time that you were also doing the male modeling?
I'll let me double down on that.
We're gonna get through this.
Yes, that was keeping me busy, but it also allowed me to become a little bit more comfortable as a human, being in front of the camera, doing work that is quite uncomfortable. I think overall helped me. And we got to know so many amazing people, and the industry. That industry helped me also with even with Nutrafol to expand that and to scale accordingly.
And tell us a little bit about your own personal experience in the hair department. Well before Nutrafol, what stimulated you?
I have to backtrack maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Actually, during my engineering career, I realized that I was genetically predisposed, and I started to lose my hair. That was the first wake-up call that I had. My father lost his hair in his early 20s, and I remember I went to a dermatologist in Holland, and he did a pool test. This is back in the days. And, he said, by the time you're 30, you're gonna have a beautiful bald spot on the back of your head. So obviously I panicked, and he prescribed me finasteride. So I was on finasteride for about 9 years. It did prevent my hair loss, but unfortunately I suffered tremendously from the side effects that were involved with using the drug. And that affected my health, but it also tremendously affected my confidence, because I couldn't necessarily talk to anyone about the side effects. I was dismissed in Holland multiple times, and this is not a topic that was very discussable with my parents at that time, because the sexual side effects were pretty bad. So that was actually interests me to deep dive and at least understand what's going on. So when I came to New York, to keep a long story short, my business partner Roland Peralta, he suffered from RA, rheumatoid arthritis, and he treated it very effectively with curcuminoids, which are the anti-inflammatory standardized botanicals. And one of the side benefits that he experienced was his hair started to grow back. So he was a trusted individual in my life, and I opened up about the side effects that I was experiencing with finasteride and dutasteride at that time, because every single time I stopped using the pharmaceutical, my hair started to fall out. It started to rain hair. Couldn't even do this. It actually came out in clumps. So that was obviously devastating. My business partner helped me with that approach, and fate actually brought us together. So how does inflammation play a role when it comes to the disruption of the hair growth cycling, right?
Right.
That was the first question, because he was targeting inflammation very effectively, and his hair started to grow back. And that was really the beginning of us becoming incredibly curious, and shoulder to shoulder we sat next to each other for about 1.5 years to just understand, as curious consumers, hair biology, really.
And that was 2015?
That was 2014.
14. And when did you first come into my office? Was it 16?
That was 2 years later, yeah.
Yeah. And so you started down this path of Nutrafol, and take us through that. At what point did you realize you wanted to commercialize these anti-inflammatories and so forth?
Yeah, so it was very important for us. Everything that we did, but also what we still do to date, was driven from our personal experiences. So the goal was not necessarily to commercialize a product. The goal was to help ourselves and then help others too, right? So for us in the beginning, it was very interesting to see how the product would work, because I'm a big believer, and especially in the engineering world, right? For very complex problems, you need to approach it in a very simple way, and the pharmaceuticals and the basic vitamins and minerals out there, they were mono-targeting the issue. Right, and we very quickly understood the hypothesis was there's multiple factors that play a role when it comes to hair biology and hair loss and thinning hair for men and for women. So we had to understand that problem first, which obviously was just an hypothesis. So there was a white paper that was written that I believe we shared it with you in the beginning, because we didn't yet have a full-blown clinical trial on the product. Which was obviously necessary, but we always believed, first, it's not about just building a business for the sake of building a business and making money, right? We had our own careers. It was about we want to solve a problem that will add value to people's lives. So, which required us to make such investments, and also to prove to ourselves that the product was actually effective and very safe at the same time. Because everything that was effective wasn't so easy to use, like minoxidil, for example, and of course finasteride with the side effects. But then everything that was kind of healthy, the basic vitamins and minerals out there, they simply just didn't work. So we had to strike the right balance. So understanding hair biology from the ground up, investing a ton of research and due diligence in how it works and mechanism of action of potential ingredients, which were the nutraceuticals that we introduced, which was the standardized nutraceuticals that go way beyond just the basic vitamins and minerals out there. So we understood the problem. We had a mechanism of action that we needed to address with standardized nutraceuticals, but that didn't mean the product actually worked. Right, so the green light to answer your question that I personally received was we manufactured, was self-funded the company for about a year. So we basically went all in. It wasn't. It was a big risk, but we believed that hypothesis had legs, and we started to give the product out to a ton of people, including doctors, stylists at the time as well, and a lot of consumers, including family members. And the results were just absolutely mind-blowing. What was super interesting is that because the product was originally designed for men, there was such an amazing appetite and desire for women to take the product as well, which opened up a whole new conversation for us. And to date, actually, the business is 80% women, which just tells you how much that actually had to be addressed somehow. But that's how everything came together. And to date, all this research is published and peer-reviewed, and clinical trials that we invested in with some of the people here in this room. It's something that we're incredibly proud of, and we're incredibly thankful to the community.
So when you start with the first product, it was primarily geared towards men. And as everyone knows, there are products now that you have in your full complement, your full line, that are targeted for women versus men. What are the main differences in those products? I get asked a lot, can I take the women's product, for instance? Some guy asked me, or vice versa. What's the main differences there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we were the first to really view hair biology a little differently when it comes to men and women. So I'm a big believer in personalization in general, and obviously that's where the industry is moving. But especially for men, DHT, it's still the main cause. And obviously, DHT could be triggered by your environment. Right, so the testosterone is triggered, and in many cases by the environment, including stress, elevated cortisol, inflammation, etc. For women, that's a little different. As far as we know, it's very much related to hormonal imbalances and also cortisol, but that's a little different for men. So the two formulations from the beginning were quite different. As we evolved, actually we used to give women that go through menopause, peri and post-menopause, the men's product, which obviously was very confusing because of the DHT component. So we introduced a product called the Women's Balance, specifically focused on women that go through peri and post-menopausal hair loss and thinning, which is now actually that audience alone is bigger than the entire men's audience as a business. But again, we did that because we saw the gap. We saw that the problem wasn't addressed properly. And I have so many stories that still stick with me. Women that are afraid to go outside and because they're afraid that the wind is going to blow in a specific direction and it's going to reveal a potential bald spot. Or a woman that I met a few months ago that was wearing a wig for a few years and her husband didn't even know about it. Right? So you hear these stories all the time, and it's like the problem wasn't necessarily addressed, and most importantly, there was always this taboo still, and it still is to date, and which is a big part of our mission. To break these taboos and to bring women together and to have at least a conversation about this and to try to normalize it, which is personally what continues to drive me forward every day. So from product to personalization, but if you don't have a mission and a clear why, it becomes very hard to remain extremely motivated, because building a business like this at this scale comes obviously with struggles, problems, and challenges.
So is there any harm in a woman taking the men's product or vice versa?
I wouldn't say so. We recommend not to do that because we just have a better formulation specifically designed for women in menopause. We also introduced a product that is very successful right now that is focusing on women that go through postpartum. Also something that was not really addressed properly, and the results were absolutely astonishing to see how women are being helped during that or already very a sensitive time, to at least have a product that they can trust, that at least is healthy, is clinically tested, has its clinical trials, and that can provide of a little bit of value. And that's often what it is, right? Because obviously we're not selling any magic pills here. It's about doing something that at least can help you take control of a situation. And even if we're able to provide a little bit of value there, I always consider that as a big success. Obviously, we're helping people with their hair, but this is more about, are we adding value? Because we know firsthand that it is an emotional journey for people, and it can unfortunately hold them back. And this is what I experienced, right? You're losing your confidence. It's you're not reaching your fullest potential because of potentially your hair, right? So a little bit of help, a little bit of support there, and a company and individuals and partners and doctor partners and physicians that we have internally that they're able to provide some support, and doesn't always have to be product, could be of amazing value. And we see that every day, which is amazing.
What do you see in the future for you personally and for the company?
Well, yeah, so we were, the majority of the company was acquired by Unilever, which is an amazing partner to date. This happened last year in last year in July. They believe in the mission. They believe in the mission, and they believe in the why, and that's incredibly, incredibly important to me. We're not just selling product. We're trying to move the world to a better place. And I know that's a big statement, but I'm a big believer in the ripple effect, which is if someone feels a little bit better about themselves or feel a little bit less stressed, right, that doesn't just make you a better human and a better person, but that also affects how you interact with your employees, with your colleagues, with your partners, with your kids, right? So that mission, once we almost quantified the ripple effect pre-pandemic, hiring a mathematician, I'm still going to do that one day. But yeah, the impact that you're making through something that's pretty simple still, right? It's hair, right? It's aesthetics, right? The potential there is, I think, massive, and Unilever believes in the mission that is around breaking some of these taboos, and they continue to support us in a great way. They also leave us very alone, meaning we've got a ton of autonomy within their infrastructure, which I think is set up for great success also for the future. Because you don't want to, as a large conglomerate, you don't want to take a startup that has a soul, that has great people, right? You don't want to make that too corporate and introduce hierarchies and bureaucracies, because it's just over time, it's just not going to help. Even though sometimes revenue goes up, long term, it's going to go down. Your revenue curve is going to start plateauing, and gravity is going to start taking you down. I'm a big believer of that, and they're very supportive. So I feel I'm in a very, very good place when it comes to the future. There's a lot of potential. We'll continue to invest tremendously in research, R&D, and the existing channels, including the physician channel that has been a part of our DNA that we're incredibly grateful for. So that's definitely a part of my future. And then other than that, I'm just incredibly interested in anything health related. Even with hair, right? We're taking a whole body approach. So I'm very interested in longevity and how to contribute there, how to potentially work on disease stages that we'll suffer from at some point in our lives. So any value that I can add there to decrease human suffering is what keeps me going. So there's a few interesting projects that I'm looking at, but I'm very grateful to be in this position and to continue to be a part of Nutrafol.
Well, it's been wonderful getting to know you better.
Thank you.
And you're way more than just a hair guy, right? You have a bigger mission than that, and restoring confidence is really what aesthetics is all about. And certainly starting at the top of the head and the hair is obviously a central part of all of our confidence. So thank you very much for being on the Technology of Beauty. Next time you're in LA, come to the studio and let's do a full Technology of Beauty podcast. I know we could talk to him for hours, right? Thank you very much, Giorgos.
Thank you. Thanks so much.